Chris Ronayne is the third Cuyahoga County executive and took office on January 1st, 2023, with a vision for a healthy Cuyahoga County with safe communities, good jobs, a fair justice system, and excellent services. A dedicated public servant, Chris began his career with the Cuyahoga Planning Commission, where he developed community reinvestment plans, and in Cuyahoga County government, where he launched the Division of Employer Resources. Here, Chris saw the best of county government, where the private, nonprofit, and public sectors work together to achieve results. In 2001, Chris was the campaign manager for Jane Campbell, the first woman elected mayor in Cleveland's history. At the City of Cleveland, he became planning director, where he led initiatives like the Cleveland Lakefront Plan and the Euclid Corridor. As chief architect of the Cleveland Lakefront Plan, he and his team engaged with 5,000 residents in the visioning process, secured tens of millions of dollars in state and federal funds, and laid the groundwork for projects that have received hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. Chris then served as Chief of Staff and Chief Development Officer in Cleveland, where he oversaw over 5,000 employees and managed a budget of $1.5 billion. For 16 years, Chris served as the president of University Circle, Inc. Chris achieved measurable results, transforming Ohio's education, medical, and cultural district into a thriving, complete community. He delivered more than 2,500 new and renovated neighborhood homes to the area, developed after-school and summer programs that engaged more than 10,000 students each year, helped bring a grocery store to a food desert, and connected small businesses to Cleveland's arts, education, and healthcare institutions. Chris has lived in Cuyahoga County for 40 years. He currently resides in Cleveland's Edgewater neighborhood with his wife and 2 children. Please put your hands together and welcome Chris Ronayne.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome. How are you today? It's good to be with you, and I am coming from across town. I was at a funeral this morning, but it was really a celebration of life of one of the good folks in our community who gave tirelessly. But the funeral service was in Rocky River, and that's sort of my day, out there coming from Rocky River to Beechwood. I do this all the time, but it's 59 communities, 475 square miles. And if you count the lake to the maritime line, 1,100 square miles, but we haven't figured out how to engage with the fish yet out in the waters. But it is a big county, and I'm really proud to serve you. As that wonderful introduction was happening, I think back as I'm looking around tables, just of many of you that I've met in different parts of my life, back at Cleveland State University and the Urban Affairs College, or when we were working with Mayor Jane Campbell at the City of Cleveland, years over at University Circle. I just see a few friends from out there, and even friends like Lee from my office are here today. Surprise, hello. She'll answer most of the finance questions, but it is really, really good to be with you. And I just reconnected with Lynn Ferrana just on the way in and said, we were talking about how we really just need to continue to engage good people in government to talk with our citizens about what our common goals are and work together. And I say that as a child of a mother who was a part of you. She was a member of the league, Kathy Ronayne, and I always think of her. A couple of you may know her, but she ran a small financial planning services business in town. She ran once for the school board of Fairview Park, didn't win, but ran a good race. And on my earlier campaign for county council back when, she was my lead volunteer, and I dedicated my campaign 2 years ago to her. We lost her 6 months before I won election, but she's always with me, and I channel her interest in civic dialogue. The things she did with the league. Some of you are observers at our county meetings, and I appreciate that so much that you are out there listening and transmitting some of that information to both your members and the community at large. But what I loved about my mom was her active civic engagement with my brother and I, and we would go have these wonderful Sunday dinners, always at her house in Fairview Park. What was so wonderful about them was the collegial exchange. We might disagree on something, we might agree on something, but whatever it was, we were always talking to each other when we were engaged. She passed that down to my kids as a grandmother of my kids, and it's important. So before I get going on sort of my stump speech about what we're up to out in the county, and I do want to spend some time on Q&A with you because I know how deeply vested you are on what's going to happen in our county present and future. But let me say, going back to the campaign, I wanted to kind of split this in three parts today. One was what we came into our administration with a platform to accomplish. Two, I wanted to acknowledge some of the work that I see you're doing and some of the issues that you've charted over the years, and kind of give my reflections on some of our progress or some of our I'll say struggles, getting some of what you guys have aspired to get done. And then finally, let's have a Q&A and let's talk a little bit about what's on your mind. So to start, as you heard, I'm a city planner who was fortunate to be the planning director of Cleveland and was honored to work for Mayor Campbell in that capacity. And just saw her, by the way, at her mother's passing, the Reverend Joan Brown Campbell. I think a lot of you know or knew of, just a legend in our community, but globally as well. But Mayor gave me a shot when I was 30 years old to be her planning director, and I ultimately became her chief of staff and her development officer, and just really channeled a lot of what first female mayor of the city of Cleveland gave me at the start as a young person. And I try to do that with my staff and really round out my staff with diversity, with persons of different backgrounds, age, race, and gender, and try to make a complete cabinet that serves our community as a way my boss back when Jane Campbell did. But when I was in University Circle, we had the opportunity to really develop a place that had a healthy head start with museums, cultural institutions, hospitals, and universities. But what we needed to do was connect to community to make it a greater good, for all in those neighborhoods around us. And I just this morning saw the funeral. I was at Ron Richard from the Cleveland Foundation back when he worked a lot with us to help leverage kind of the neighborhoods that need connection to a real asset base like University Circle. So I spent 15 years really building a community out in University Circle. Thought with those experiences of learning the ins and outs of City Hall, of working on city planning initiatives, working on community development, I'd have the audacious opportunity to run for office as a county exec. So I did, and in 2022, I got out on the campaign, and I think you would appreciate this. Persons who use campaigns as listening tours to really understand the community that they intend to serve really do get a head start. And I was very lucky to get out there, and I intentionally did it, was listen to our individuals and our organizations and communities as I campaigned. And what I heard on the campaign is I tried to thread some of the concepts that people were giving me were, one, let me say this, some basic things, like building a housing department. Housing, we don't have enough of it in this town and in this country. Even though Cleveland has lost in the aggregate population, we still have a housing crisis because of some of the issues of having older wood frame homes principally across the landscape and a lot of the deterioration that comes with it. So we've lost a lot of our housing stock. So simple things like start a new housing department. We did. We said that on the campaign we would do it, and we pledged it, and we delivered on it. People talked about transportation. The simple things of getting to and from work, getting a child to daycare, a senior who may no longer be driving but needs to get around town. You want to switch out? We'll do it. Not at all. Battery going low? All right. How about now? Better? All right, there we go. Should I start over? No, I'm kidding. But getting people to and from. So we started a transportation division that we had not had at the county. And those are just things that seemed intuitive, but you listen to people right on their porches at their doorsteps, and you just implement from the people's ideas. But the common theme that I came to really thread together from all my interactions in those 18 months on the campaign, which was a god-awful long time, but that's what happens these days in larger campaigns. You spend a lot of time out there, was health. And that's what I want to talk about in the opening part of this presentation today. I will remember always one conversation I had with some persons at Metro Health, our Metro hospitals, and it was coming out of COVID in 22, and it was somebody, a doctor at the Metro Health, said to me, our biggest public health crisis right now is isolation. It's the fact that people, have by necessity gone online, and now we're, shopping online, and we're studying online and we're working online. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with it until you don't have assemblage like we have today, until you've got people feeling isolated and they don't have the kind of socialization like you have gathered today. And I remembered that health, and particularly mental health, were big challenges for us ahead. So I cobbled together a number of other inputs that came from persons that I met with on the 18-month campaign. And everywhere we went, we realized the common denominator in our community was health. So we set forth on a platform for a healthy Cuyahoga. And the undergirding pillars of that platform were the health of our community, the health of our people, the health of our economy, the health of our justice system, the health of our climate, and you'll appreciate this last one as well as all those other ones probably, the health of our government, right? And to all of those, I could, with the team we assembled, do something about this with a community of partners that are out there. I'd be remiss if I didn't say nothing really does get done without partnership. And we are lucky in this community, and a lot of it, I think, the legacy of philanthropy, industrial wealth that built philanthropy, and philanthropy that gave back to places like our robust nonprofit community, the organizations that serve on the front line. But I say, really, in this place, we have the greatest private-public nonprofit, underlying nonprofit partnership in the land. Some 5,000 nonprofits in our midst here in Cuyahoga County, roughly 1,800 of them that work in health and human services areas. And so I wasn't going it alone. It was going at it with partners. And I learned quickly why we needed those partners. Let me start with the most important thing of all, the health of our citizens. From the gamut, from the early childhood initiatives to end-of-life services and everything in between. Can people live a healthy, robust life where they can thrive in their community without having to leave it? That's kind of our goal, is to create cradle-to-grave opportunities in a community where you can live out your days with everything you need: quality housing, quality transportation, and everything in between. But I want to tell the tale on the citizen front of something that hit me very quick into the administration. It was in January of 2023 where I got a call on the second Friday of January from one of my Health and Human Services directors. And he said, we have a young lady that was dropped off at our government building in an ambulance. And this was the Jane Edna Hunter building that you may have followed, may have tracked, you may have read about. But the county government at your service is actually the place, sadly, of last resort for a child who becomes homeless. And it's not something we look for. It's not something we pride ourselves in being, because really it's a failure of our community when a child becomes homeless. But we do receive kids, homeless kids off the street in the county government. So on this Friday afternoon, we got a call about a young lady who was 14. I didn't blame the ambulance driver, didn't blame the hospital, but the hospital called, said her Medicaid had run out. I kind of blame society, all of us, but hey, what are we going to do about it, right? And we took her in, and my staff, this is kind of when people are out sometimes damning the government services. Think about a staff who didn't expect to receive a child at 3 o'clock on an afternoon on a Friday, expected to be with their family, but instead got her dinner, got her a bed, and got her shelter over the weekend, right? And that shelter was a county building. 2 weeks later, we had a child in the last part of January of 2023. He was dropped off, he was 6 years old, on a Friday, again, in a school bus. Again, don't blame the school bus driver. The school bus driver could not find any parental care. Our guardian legally empowered to protect the child and take the child in. So it was us at the county. 2 weeks, 2 kids, 14 and 6, dropped off at a government building. I'll tell you, I guess the other side of that story of how we addressed citizen health. We aimed to create a place of care where kids would not be dropped off at a cold, dark government building on a Friday, but could be dropped off in a place of care, love, and most importantly, and that's what they had when they were dropped off there at our county building, but a place of attention to their actual needs. So we worked with a nonprofit called the Centers, formerly the Family for Centers and Children, to create what is essentially a modern temporary orphanage for kids. It's at 114th and Lorraine. We don't call it an orphanage. It's a place that is called the Hope Campus. And the Hope Campus, we broke ground on this last month. This is sort of our commitment to deal on one level with the citizen health, and particularly, namely in this case, our kids. So we will build out 58 units with on-site nurses, with on-site education specialists, with an on-site school, with an on-site mental health counselors, and we'll provide for these kids a better place to receive them, right? And to get them off into either foster care, some kind of adoptive placement, and or returning to their families. But I say that this is what we pledged, a healthier citizenry, right? So one of the things that we've done to actually move on that, and not just talk about that, is open a child wellness center, the Hope Campus on Lorraine and 114th. The other thing that we've been very focused on is the health of women. There is, as you know, disparity in women's health outcomes in our community. So we started a Women's Health Commission of, by, and for women. If any of you ever get interested in that, there's 14 slots there. We have currently 14 persons serving it, but we're always open to persons who want to serve on the Women's Health Commission. It was launched last June in concert with Metro Health, by the way, and all of our hospitals are involved. But it's to help with women's health outcomes. Specifically, the Women's Health Commission is focused on mental health care and also teenage health issues for our teens, for our area teens. So we're actually looking to enlist some teens to join us as youth advisors on that board. But I also want to mention the challenge is great when it comes to health. You guys have heard about the social determinants of health. Some of you work in that space, live in that space, know that space well. But it is quite a tale to tell that we can be in a community where you can live 20 minutes from one another and have a 20-year variance on your life expectancies. Meg, I'm looking out at you. I know where you live. The differences in the great two communities of the Buckeye neighborhood of Cleveland and Shaker Heights itself, and you live right at the interstitial middle of all that, it can be 20 years life differences, you know, in terms of variances in life outcomes. So we drill down on what are those social determinants of health that are affecting persons' outcomes. And they won't surprise you. It's aged homes with lead in the pipes, with lead in the paint. It's gun violence. It's a whole lot of things. It's lack of attention to early childhood development. It's juvenile justice systems gone awry. So all of this stuff we are working on to create better health outcomes. 2 weeks ago in the city of East Cleveland, we launched the Office of Violence Prevention. It's a large majority of it is gun violence prevention, right? But there's other matters of violence in our community that we are addressing. We will be bringing on a violence prevention administrator. I'm proud of that, but this all leans in on these issues of social determinants of health. You know, in the time that I speak today, we will lose individuals in our society to gun violence, right? And we're losing on any given day, on any given hour, 7 people in this country. One of them is a child, right? You know, so we have got to take stock in our violence in our community. But Cuyahoga County will step up to that challenge with our Office of Violence Prevention. I want to talk about the issues of health in our communities at large. I mentioned I represent 59 of them, including this great city we're in here, but I was in the city of East Cleveland the other day. They've got a great new mayor. I'd encourage you to have her speak sometime to you, Sandra Morgan. She's the granddaughter of Garrett Morgan, the inventor, who never got enough credit, frankly, because of the color of his skin. But he invented things like the traffic signal, the modern traffic signal. And the one I always love is the hooded mast that saves lives under the tunnels under the bedrock of Lake Erie in a crisis. That was Garrett Morgan, her grandfather. But Sandra Morgan Sharp takes after her grandfather, and she became the new mayor of East Cleveland by appointment when the last mayor was indicted. And we're hoping for steady government in the city of East Cleveland. But I'm working with her on an operations task force in the city of East Cleveland because right now, sadly, we are a county that hosts both the poorest community in the state of Ohio and probably the wealthiest community in the state of Ohio, just within 20 minutes of one another. Those are East Cleveland and Hunting Valley, right? But East Cleveland isn't poor in anything other than finances, not in pride, not in spirit. It sees a great future through a mayor like her. But she invited me in, I think you would appreciate this at the league, to provide back-of-the-house services, right? Lee knows this, you know, finance services, HR services, law services, things that, frankly, she just doesn't have right now on her payroll. And this is where I know how much you guys have focused on regional collaboration. It's these little things that can add up to mean something, right? So we're working with the mayor to help her stabilize her government And she can tell you more firsthand if you'd like, but I'll just steal a couple secrets of her thunder. And one is she said, look, I'm willing to partner with other communities adjacent me on fire services, as an example. I'll let her tell you more about that. But that's exciting when a mayor selflessly says, I can work across community borders, and if there's a more efficient system of urban service delivery, let's go. And I love that open-mindedness that's coming out of Sandra Morgan. But we have some work to do. 2 weeks ago, Friday, we fortunately held a press conference in East Cleveland. Imagine living in a home where across the street somebody's illegally dumping tires right in your community, right? Well, there was several blocks of that happening in the city of East Cleveland. We put the Environmental Crimes Task Force on it. They arrested, they prosecuted, and we cleaned up 4 city blocks in the city of East Cleveland for a more vital future, just off of Euclid Avenue. But this is what I mean when I talk about the health of our community, the fiscal health of the community, the overall, everything from soil contaminants in the community to are we efficiently working with governments across community borders to do good things. We're going to stay focused on that. So I mentioned the health of our economy. We are a community of 30,000 small business owners all throughout where we're sitting today. Neat place to be, but little small shops like my mom's, a financial planner who over 30 years of owning a financial planning business, employed 5 women. It was 6 women in the firm, and they had 350 clients. And what her clients keep telling me after her passing is they got my kids to college. These are small businesses in our midst that matter. So the county recently opened an Office of Small Business. And we're not here to say we know best. We're here to say, what do you need? What can we do? I appreciate it in the bio. I asked the county commissioners when I worked for them 20 years ago, could we start a division of employer resources? And we did. What can we do to keep employers employing in this town? We know it's a lot of things, everything from technology to workforce development to things as simple as loading docks or community safety. What can we do to keep our community businesses here? So that's one small contribution we've recently made, is to open up an Office of Small Business. The new charter that I think this league worked on stipulated in the charter that we would focus on economic development, that we would focus on efficiencies and service delivery. And that's what I'm wedded to, is the charter, that's what I'm hired by you to execute, is the charter of Cuyahoga County. So stay true to it. And we hope we are doing that. On the matter of our health of our justice system, I can tell you tonight there will be 1,500 persons staying in our county jail who we wish weren't there, obviously. And some, frankly, if we could provide other services to them, or we had gotten upstream and done it earlier, we would be not seeing them in our county jail tonight. But we are building a new county jail. And I don't wake up every day wanting to build a new county jail. That's not exactly the most aspirational use of your time. But I will say, as we do this, we will do this in a better way. And the reason we are, and any of you could understand this, but taking a tour of our jail the first week in office when I arrived in 2023 and seeing in that vertical tower downtown a very inhumane place, we needed to do better. So we bought 72 acres out on the Garfield Heights 480 corridor, where we hope we can create a campus that heals. And that's our aspiration. Working with everybody. Tri-C. Michael Bastian, the president of Tri-C, said to me, if I have somebody for 3 days or I have them for 300 days, I can help them. I can help them, give them a skill to come back out into the community, re-enter with a skill and a purpose. Edwin's, Brandon Krostowski said the same to me. I can give culinary skills if I'm just afforded the opportunity. And you can go on and on. We will be bringing in those skill providers as partners in the new county jail. We also will start re-entry on day one when somebody joins our custody, wherever they're going. If they're going to a state prison system or federal prison system, or if they're coming back out in the community, we will work on how do you actually help yourself for the time you're here and heal yourself. But the physical expanse of the county campus itself, we literally needed to give people a space to breathe, right? And that's one of our focus areas. So it's just the physical plant being in a way that is actually humane, right? But it's also the programming inside. So inside that new county jail will be, we hope, a state-of-the-art national best practice of a behavioral care center in the jail. Because of the 1,500 persons I mentioned to you that are in our custody tonight, half of them are suffering from mental health challenges. addiction service challenges. So I'm working again, I appreciate you guys, what you've inspired us to do with regionalism and working across community borders. I'm working with municipal judges to get judges the tools they need to get someone help as they see them at the bench, right? Things like mental health counseling services. And this goes to this ecosystem of nonprofit providers that help us get things done. Through the ADAMS board, which is the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, Mental Health Services Board, we're going to be opening a crisis center that will become a diversion center for somebody that might be having a challenge in the community but isn't really poised to necessarily be in a downtown jail or in the future campus jail in Garfield Heights, but frankly needs mental health counseling and hasn't caused a felony crime that puts them behind bars tonight. They just need mental health counseling. So we're working on that. Another regional service that I think you'd appreciate, we launched with 5 communities right out here in the Hillcrest communities, is a co-responder model. I thank Mayor David Weiss in Shaker Heights and 4 other mayors from South Euclid, Richmond Heights, Cleveland Heights, and University Heights. Those 5 mayors banded together with us at Cuyahoga County and with the support of the Gun Foundation, and we are creating a co-responder. So if somebody is having a challenge, and you see persons in our midst that are going through mental health crisis, and if they are, of those 5 communities, when dispatch calls are made and there's a person that is suffering from mental health challenges, it won't be just the badge, the officer that comes out. It will be somebody that's a mental health care specialist from organizations like Recovery Resources in our town. And I'll tell you, working with law enforcement, they appreciate the support because that wasn't what they were trained to necessarily diffuse, right? And so an officer with an open mind says, I need that help. And the good news is that regional model of 5 communities working with a shared mental health service provider who will co-respond with an officer upon dispatch. Now, the cities of Parma and Parma Heights have contacted us, and they are going to invest in the same model. So there you go, regionalism at work, right, for more just communities. Want to talk about our climate health. I came in with high aspirations to be better stewards of our climate, and we are. I'm lucky to be going to Washington, D.C. next week to talk about what we're doing in Cuyahoga County. And I was in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago. Democrat walked into the Republican White House, said, I'm here to be counted for because we are Cuyahoga County and we need to show up when invited. So it was Ohio Day at the White House. But a lot of things I heard about climate scared me, bothered me. You know, I don't think this needs to be an environment that is hostile against climate innovation, solar technologies, the kinds of things we're doing back home here. So we're staying with our program. And we launched Cuyahoga Green Energy, which is a alternative to, frankly, some of our solo energy providers in the state of Ohio. You know who they are. It's been a bit of a monopoly. I wanted to create an alternative, a clean future with cost competition, you know, for you, the consumer. So we're off and running with Cuyahoga Green Energy. We're starting out with microgrids in commercial districts like this that we're in now, that we can channel energy through solar sources, wind sources, and actually create self-sustaining places in an energy front. We think that's just great, you know, work and great progress. We'll see how Washington feels about it, but we're sticking to our Cuyahoga Green Energy model. We've had our fits and starts lately because there's been some backlash to our solar production out here in Ohio. But look, here's what happens in the real world outside of Washington. I'm working with the Lake County city manager, Democrat working with a Republican in Painesville Township, to take down a coal-fired peaker plant and replace with solar. And we have a federal $138 million grant that's hanging in the balance that, yes, was granted in the last administration. And we hope we can maintain in this administration to just do the right thing, to give alternatives in Lake County and alternative energy sources and not pollute our air and our waterways, right? To me, that just makes common sense. Finally, I want to talk, and before I leave the water and our climate, we also started something called the Freshwater Institute. Was really proud this January to June, just about wrapping up, and they're going to commence with the first 30 kids who joined our Freshwater Institute. The Freshwater Institute was inspired for me by a trip I took with my wife when she was the Cleveland Botanical Gardens director. I was the tag-along to Costa Rica. But when we took tours of the rainforest and the cloud forests, we realized that it was kids that were giving the tours, young people in their teens and their early 20s, giving tours of what they had in front of them. And the deduction for me is that these kids understand the climate around them, and they understand the precious resource of the cloud forests and the rainforests of Costa Rica that they happen to be lucky to be born into, right? Well, our kids are lucky to have been born into the Great Lakes Basin. And what we wanted first and foremost is to teach our kids about what they have and also listen to them about their observations of what we have. So we've got 30 kids enrolled in a Saturday program. They're down there today. I think this is their last class of the semester. But they've learned about the ecology, the history, and the future opportunities of the fresh water in front of them. Stories like Carl Stokes that maybe kids can relate to. They see an African-American mayor who stood up and said no more and started the Clean Water Act with his brother Lewis, who was a newly elected congressman. Hearing those stories, understanding those stories, and also seeing job opportunities. Some of the kids are working this summer helping clean up the Cuyahoga River on 2 barges called Flotsam and Jetsam in concert with the Port Authority. We got kids out on there's 2 kids worked last summer through the Fast Star program, which is the Davis Aviation and Maritime High School, on Laker ships, making real money out in the lakes, right? But what we see is a great future on our water. So education is the first pillar of the Freshwater Institute. Advocacy, I was in Chicago 2 days ago talking with my partners of the Great Lakes Cities and St. Lawrence Seaways Initiative, and what they are focused on is what we are focused on. I joked about those 700 square miles in the lake to the maritime line that are part of Cuyahoga County, but it's really not a joke. The actuality is we need to preserve the water that's here, and we need to not see it get diverted. And that's the unfortunate concern of the future, is that places dry out in west and south, we're going to see water piped out unless we band together. So speaking of that, we started a a multi-county Midwest Caucus, Great Lakes Caucus, I should say, with, yes, Canada. Yes, the provinces of Quebec and Ontario are working with us because we share the waters, right? But I was glad to be the founding partner to it, because we told our story of a river that burned and a river that's returning and a river that's about to be delisted as an area of concern, as the EPA calls it, because we've checked off the checklist of things that have created pollutant problems into the lake, and we're almost there. We were looking forward. I met with US EPA administrator. She's from here, by the way, worked for Governor DeWine as the US EPA director, the Ohio EPA director. Now she's the US EPA Region 5 director. What I do is I go look for people I can work with across the aisle, no matter their partisanship. I found one person that I made a connection with at the White House last week, and that's good, because I need one person to talk when grants get, the spigot gets turned off, and I say, wait, why are we doing that to the Veterans Memorial Bridge? You are threatening to take away $7 million that goes towards the construction of a new park we're putting up on the bridge. So I got somebody to work with, but I also got somebody to work with at the US EPA. That's why I travel, by the way. I just want you to know you need to get out on behalf of this county in DC and Columbus and other places. But back to the Freshwater Institute, we started with 81 counties from Minnesota to New York, all of the Great Lakes counties, Great Lakes states rather, the 8 Great Lakes states and the 2 provinces of Canada that touch the Great Lakes, the Freshwater Institute. And our goal is going to be to preserve, protect, and advance what we have. Our goal is going to be to build a maritime economy and really lever that nobody revels in climate migration, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen to places like this, and we need to be ready with climate resilience, but also with job readiness and preparation for a future that is in a sustainable place like the Great Lakes. I mean, be happy, I guess, that your kids, your grandkids are in a place of sustainability, but nobody revels of why people would have to migrate here. Finally, our healthy government. We are laser focused, I hope, on some of the things that you have over the years really talked about. You know, your work on regionalism, your work on tax thresholds and shared services. I wrote a paper coming into my new job on shared land, shared tax, shared resources and services. I feel like I was channeling you, but it was a column I did with the Plain Dealer a few years back. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to work on efficient services in government. The Cuyahoga County employs 4,500 people. Leah and I are 2 of 4,500 people that we employ. But what we can do is be, as we are for East Cleveland, kind of a back-of-the-house service provider and also a convener leader that creates service connections, for our communities that maybe need not always each one of them having their own law director or their own HR director or even their own finance director. If we can create regional collaborative services. I also need to be, for you, at the forefront of IT, right? I need to be, not just our website, but everything we do. We need to be a front runner in digital efficiencies and things of that nature. We need to be customer service friendly to you. I opened the Cuyahoga Welcome Center in the old Brooklyn neighborhood out of a former neighborhood family service center that we owned Why? I want to be proximate to people with government services. Again, despite the flyover politics of Washington, Columbus, or anywhere else, we grew by one group in the last decade. And that one large group is the aggregate of immigrants who came here, right? And so we are, I'm sorry, I'm going to wear it right on my sleeve, legally documented, but pro-immigrant, right? I'm a son and a stepson of two immigrants who've made it here in this country. 20% of American entrepreneurs are immigrants. So last year, at the opening last February of our Cuyahoga Welcome Center, 3,000 persons came through our door that simply wanted to take a chance on Greater Cleveland. They wanted to take a chance to live here, work here. So at the desk are people who can provide housing services, education, opportunities, and where new kids that are maybe English is the second at best language for them, and where they can learn, right? So I'm proud of that. I realize that there could be looming a target on our back that we have this Immigrant Services Center, but we're sticking to it. It's still open, and we'll tell anybody who asks, hey, this is working. Because in 2022 and 2023, 8,000 newcomers found their way to Cuyahoga County. Unfortunately, we still have, it's the rowboat coming in and the steamship going out. We're finally seeming to be a little bit, the population estimates just came out for the communities of Cuyahoga County. We seem to finally be stabilized. Center City of Cleveland, for the first year in decades, showed growth. So we're starting to stabilize. But it's people from other places. The Economist recently ran an article about places that are quote-unquote shrinking cities. I'm not here to say Cleveland is one of those yet, but Youngstown is. Other places are. And what they said is the only way you're going to grow again is through newcomers, domestic newcomers or international newcomers. But full circle to the healthy government that we serve all, we want to be proximate to the people. So having neighborhood centers like that matter in terms of services. I read what you guys had to kind of ask and what some of your policy platforms are. And the one that I've avoided, but I'm going to now at least bring up, and then let's go to Q&A. But I hope you got a sense of the healthy Cuyahoga. No, I didn't talk about the Cleveland Browns in the first 20 minutes of this, right? But I will now. I will. And then I want to open it up. But that's our healthy Cuyahoga County framework. And yes, for especially downtowns, but really towns everywhere, arts and culture matters, right? Social venues like this matter. Sports matters too, from recreational health and wellness for our kids and our seniors. They may want to play pickleball or may want to play soccer. It matters. First thing I told the Greater Cleveland Partnership when they asked me about the Browns a while back is I said, don't forget our communities. Think of the communities you come from. How's your gym? How's your rec center? How's your senior center? How's your youth outlets, like their gym and like their football fields and baseball fields? So I said to the partnership, as we go about sports financing, let us not forget the communities with kids who need a lot of our help. I was inspired by being down in the Broadway Slavic Village neighborhood and meeting with a head of school at Cleveland Central Catholic, and he said, I just need to get this place drained. It's a softball field for his girls' softball team, and he said they can't play because in heavy rains, the irrigation system doesn't work. That's what's in my heart when I think about sports and recreation. It's actually our kids and our seniors and people who want to recreate for healthier living. But on the matter, of the Cleveland Browns, I've been stalling, right? The matter is a serious matter, and on the way over here, I made a call to our metropolitan planning organization who does infrastructure work, and I said, here it comes. We got an application for $80 million of infrastructure this week. It just came in from the city of Brook Park to ready themselves for a new stadium. So they need highway exit ramps on the I-71 near the airport. They need walking pedestrian bridges over that highway from Engel Road to get you into that future stadium site. Here it goes, right? And that's what I was worried about. I think we are one of the front-running leaders in downtown sports in as much as you guys remember the history or have read about it. Nothing against Richfield, but the Richfield plan that was proposed by Nick Maletti years ago for the Cleveland Cavaliers didn't pan out. He didn't build the hotel. He didn't build the retail. All that was left was the hamburger place that was there before they got there. And we brought it back 20 years ago to a place called Gateway, right? And around Gateway, we built Progressive Field, then Jacobs Field, and we built the Rocket Arena, then a Gund Arena, and the queue in between. And we built a fabulous neighborhood around it. We renovated historic warehouse district and Gateway neighborhood and began to repopulate the downtown with residents around an interesting place. It's the same play that I had in University Circle, is maybe people want to live around an interesting place, and lo and behold, they did. Over 15 years, we built 5,000 units of housing around the Cleveland Museum of Art and around the Cleveland Severance Hall, and I always said to Judson, they were there first with the smart living concept and knew people wanted to be around an interesting place. So I start with kind of the bias that the downtown model has actually been a national model for other cities that are now doing today what we did 20 years ago. Places like Detroit that have brought the Pistons and the Lions, a basketball and football team in greater Detroit, back downtown. I've been going to Detroit since I was a kid with my folks, and it's having great days. And my wife and I were there last New Year's Eve for a hockey game, and it was vibrant. It was a vital place because there's all this interesting energy on downtown. So our first concern is a planning concern, is if you take the stadium from downtown, which, by the way, the misnomer of, hey, it's only used 8 days a year, not really. They held a concert there this week. I went to the Billy Joel concert last summer there and the Rolling Stones. My daughter went to a prom in the stadium as a prom date this spring. I mean, things do happen over there, and parents stick around to pick up their kids, and they go to dinner downtown and things, right? So there's a lot of extra energy being downtown. But having 3 professional sports facilities for a mid-sized city, we punch above our weight in terms of downtown vitality. So that was the first thought, was the just general principle of keep your downtown whole. And the second thought was don't drain us. So now this $80 million ask through the Metropolitan Planning Association that's come in is just that. Mayor Bibb and I went to Washington, and we nailed down $280 million of infrastructure to get a better connection to the harbor front and to the Brown Stadium, and the Haslam's supported that plan. We went to Mike DeWine in the state of Ohio and asked him for support, and they gave us $20 million. The Haslams went with us. Where did you guys veer off the road here, right? Somewhere along the way in the last year and a half, they veered off the road to the road to Brook Park. And the road to Brook Park, frankly, is, and I'm fearful it's going to happen, but I'm fearful about the results more than anything. The deflation of the downtown, the added infrastructure costs that take away in a zero-sum game of infrastructure that could go to your community, and the overall issue of competition. Even this group here, in this exact place we're in, Pinecrest, have weighed in and said, we're barely making it here. You want to duplicate this? That drains us, right? So what's the logic of this duplication and zero-sum game? I'm just going to say it. For the Haslams, the logic is profit. They want to hold all the parking revenues that they project over 30 years. They will get full parking at every game day and get airport parking, and they want all the money for the parking. Well, we have to, in the public sector, balance the public good, right? And that's what I'm trying to do. So we looked at their request of us, which was to put $600 million of your tax dollars and bond monies to the equation. I looked with our fiscal analysts like Lee and Mike Chambers, her colleague, and a whole lot of others, and we realized it's too risky because the development proposal that they make, as Mitchell Schneider, who's built Legacy Village, put in a Cranes editorial recently, they're taking all the profit and socializing all the risk on you. And that risk on you is this. The model is balanced on state income tax. Well, you have a gubernatorial candidate, the lead gubernatorial candidate of the Republicans is saying, I might do away with income tax. So what does that do for a model based on income tax? It's based on a bed tax that they somehow say is going to double in size with the advent of their new project that the county bed tax is just going to miraculously double in size. I can go on with the assumptions. Most good developers do a mid-case scenario and a worst-case scenario. They've done only the best-case scenario, that for 30 years we're going to be watching football at $1,000 for family pricing with $200 of parking, and I think it's going to price real fans out of the market. But they're going to balance the model on all these perfect assumptions when, frankly, the world's going for football with a F-U-B-T-O-L, right? Football like the soccer is what I'm trying to say. And we don't know. We don't know where we're going to be in 30 years, let alone 10 years. We don't know where we're going to be with income tax in this state, and we don't know whether or not it's actually going to pan out from every aspect that they propose, not to mention what it's going to do to a place like this or what it's going to do to downtown. So no wonder the Hoteliers Association downtown has come out against it. No wonder the Downtown Cleveland Inc. has come out against it. I'm very upset at our business chamber, the Greater Cleveland Partnership, who frankly didn't all get to vote. It was a small sector of the group I sort of call them the boys club literally, because many of the CEOs in the chamber that I look up to are people like my mom that are mid-sized businesses like Fit Technologies, run by a female business owner, said, I didn't get a vote. Karen Fanger, who I saw this morning, who's the second largest owner of property downtown with K&D, said, I didn't get a vote. So that was an inside vote by a chamber, and the real reason I feel kindred to just tell you guys this was that the state needed cover, that the state Speaker of the House realizes this is wildly unpopular, not to mention his own Legislative Service Commission called it risky 40 days after we did, and the governor's Budget and Management Office called it overly risky 40 days after we did. So we're all in accord on the fiscal reality of this. But they, at the House, gave $600 million in bonds, your tax dollars, to this project, and now the Senate's going to do something on Tuesday akin to that. And they called the partnership and said, we need cover. So take a vote. So they took a small group of a small group subset in the chamber and said, yes, we support this. Folks, democracy is on the line, and I know you know that. This, to me, smacks of some of the things we've seen in the energy world around the state of Ohio. I mean, this smacks to me of serious problem. I'm using nicer words than I probably use at home, but this, to me, we got a real problem with what's happening when a mayor of a center city and a regional county executive have said together, this is not a good deal for our city. Please don't do it, state. But the state preempts us through a few who I think in some respects are tying back to things that you know, like Issue 1, and those that supported the Issue 1 against the anti-gerrymandering initiative supported people who hold the pen, and those people with the pen that are creating the districts, I hope you're following me here, are the same people that are making the decisions about your tax dollars and sending this boondoggle to our city despite our wishes. And this is where we have a problem, and this is where we need you. And I will leave you with that and say thank you for you. Thank you. I could take some questions. All right. Please, you want to moderate? All right, great.
Are we on?
Thanks, Al.
Yeah, we're on. Okay. Let's do some questions. Thank you. Let's do Michael first.
Chris, I've got so many questions.
Yeah, hi, Michael.
You are
we go back.
You are a wonderful student of history of this region.
I learned it from you.
Well,
And a lot of
the county government, we're now 10 plus years
Yeah.
into this system. How's it going?
Yeah.
And what would you do to change it?
I'm glad you brought that up, Michael. Thank you. He's right. We chartered actually in 2009, and then the 2010 races happened, and the government was seated in 11. So we're 14 years young into a new chartered government. That again, the league I think was pretty active back when on the new government. And you guys know it came out of scandal. It came out of some trouble in the county, to say the least. And I think it passed with voter confidence, in part because they wanted to move away from a system that was failing them. I will be the first to say it's kind of going back to hearkening to democracy. It's good if you can hold it, right? I mean, you channel some speakers who've said in the past, it's as good as leadership. It's as good as the leadership. So nothing is guaranteed to be a perfect form, right? And some of the 86 other counties that aren't county executive counties, only Summit and Cuyahoga are county exec and council, which is more akin to mayor and council. Then in Tennessee, New York State, Kentucky, Texas, random states around the country, they have county exec systems. And in different places, they're called county mayors, and they're called, even down south, county judges, which I never want to be known as a county judge. But anyways, that a little bit of history there. Yes, we're 14 years young. We do have decades charter review commissions. I frankly think it's too late if we wait a decade to make charter changes. I think we should be making more interim changes, and maybe I can work with you on that. We have made progress on some things that just make sense. And what I try to do, and especially in this environment of trying to work with people, that going sometimes against the grain of that, is work with my council. Because we said to the 11 members of council, we need your help. We have to go to you to buy a copy machine for you Cuyahoga County residents, and that's ridiculous. The spending limits were so tight on the executive. I mean, you vote she or he in, and you hope, you're going to get some efficiency and some integrity in the office, or you vote them out. You don't like what I'm doing, vote me out. but I got to be able to move, right? So through legislation, again, Lee's aware of 501 legislation, which is just a number in the charter. We actually upped that spend power, but I think it came in low because people didn't trust the government. And maybe they're trusting it a bit more now, at least locally, and our council and administration have a little more trust. So we worked on that together. But I think there's still some threats. Prosecutor's office still thinks we shouldn't have a law department, and I'm working to say to the county prosecutor, we need a law department on things that you're too busy to attend to, simple contracts and things of that nature. So there's a little gnashing of teeth on who is the lawyer for the county, right? That's a little more probably inside ball, but that's just something I'm dealing with lately. I think on the aggregate, though, I was a little concerned years ago, though it wasn't in office, when ARPA dollars got distributed to county council, because it wasn't really what I saw as the purpose of council to have sort of independent spend opportunities. But it happened, they've spent it down, and now I'm worried about, are they going to ask for a next round that we don't really have to make those spends in community? I would say that the relationship with county council matters a lot, so I try to work very hard at that. I think our county council members do work very hard, and we've got a good team of them. I think that on the original design, it was designed, or at least philosophically thought to be a little different. I was hoping to get county council members that were had day jobs and were kind of counselors, you know, at our night meetings on strategy and on budget. But when the salary went up, I'm not officially opposing their salaries, don't get me wrong here, but when it went up, Allegheny was, you know, kind of in the teens in terms of compensation for the job, Allegheny and Pittsburgh. And in Akron, about the same. Here, it's what we call the livable wage, which means it's a full-time job, which means that some of that balance of power from the executive council kind of falls over to council, because council's spending every day and every hour on these matters. I mean, we made it work. You know, we made it work. Cincinnati, Hamilton County, and their business chamber came up to me recently and said, we want to look at doing this down in Cincinnati. And I said, you know, there's pluses and minuses. You know, the relationship with council really matters, and how you structure that council matters, and how you empower an exec to do their job, like their spending powers and things. But on the balance, at the end of the day, systems work if leaders work. And I'm trying to work with people to make the system work. And I would, if you asked me tomorrow, would you choose county commissioners or would you choose county exec, I would choose county exec. So.
I really hate to do this,
Yeah,
but
too
we
long?
only have the room until 1
Oh.
o'clock.
Oh,
and it is
no.
12:58.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, well, let's do this again. Well, you know, I'd come back anytime for just a Q&A if you want. So,
I just want to thank Chris Ronayne for coming and talking to us. And I'm sorry, I don't have
no,
access,
we're good.
but we have-
I'm clutching because I hate to go. I love the questions where they got started. But
we do
yeah.
have a little
Okay.
gift
Oh,
there in the
you don't have to do
corner
that.
for you as a
Thank you much. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you, everybody, all our members for showing up, both in person and online. And those who couldn't make it, please do fill out the interest cards as we have asked. There are leftovers on the table. Help yourself.
And I'll stand by the door and take those questions if you have them, you want, or your input. I'll hang out in the back.
Because he's an awesome guy.
I appreciate you.